Hey, welcome back. Today we are going to take a look at triggers, and we're going to use those triggers to open some doors. We're going to have a traditional door that rotates open, and then we're also going to take a look at using a trigger to create a slider. And from this you can then, I guess, extrapolate this idea and this concept to use triggers for other things maybe in your video game, like moving secret passages or other types of devices or things that you want to have moved that the character can interact with. All right, so again, if you haven't been following along with this game, you can, and if you want to create this game, you can certainly follow along using putting on the Fritz 3D visualization. Yeah, I changed the name to kind of approach a little bit more than just 3D animation, since I am getting into game design and 3D modeling and some virtual production stuff. So we are changing the name. So there you go. But if you want to, you can jump in here and follow along with this game starting at video number 1 and follow it all the way through. And of course, triggers, they don't necessarily have to be used with just this game. You can use them in any of your games. So if you're just interested in getting that piece of it, then watch the video, and hopefully this will solve some of your problems. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and kind of talk about what it is we're trying to do here. And there we go. All right, so here is where we left off on the game. You can see it pretty much hasn't changed. We've got some of these spawn points for our health pickups, and then I have added a little light here in front of the door because it was kind of dark the way the light's built right now. I haven't gone back through and rebuilt the light, but you can see that the front door is there. And the first thing I want to do before I actually get into creating this is I want to disable my enemies, so that keep them from spawning, so that I can actually move around without having to try to dodge them and take up the time doing that. So what we're going to do is right here in our content folder, I'm going to go into my blueprints and then into my game mode where we set up the spawning for our enemy, and then into our blueprint for that. And then right here where it says spawn wave, I'm just going to disconnect that for right now, compile it. And when you're ready to play your game, don't forget to come back in and add that back in. I'll probably cover it as we get towards the end anyway, but just in case I forget. All right, so now if I hit play, you'll see we have our characters, be able to move around. But the doors right now do not open. In fact, I can just walk right through them. We're going to fix that. All right. And there are actually quite a few things inside this house that are already kind of set up for me to be able to just kind of walk through. So the way we can fix that is, first what I want to do is I'm going to just select this door, for example, since I know I can walk through it. And if I double click on the door, it's going to come up with this right here for all the information about this door, so we can come in and we can kind of play around with some of the attributes of this door. And one of the things we want to mess with is the collision, right? So right here where it says project default, this is one way we can do it, but we have to do this for every single item if we want to change it by hitting the down arrow and then changing it from use complex collision as simple. And what that would do is now it will create it so that I wouldn't be able to walk through this door. But having to do that for every single item in my game might not be what you want to do. It's just kind of one of those things you have to think about. Because what we can do is we can go in, and since it says project default, we can go into our project settings. And inside our project settings, down here under physics, in under our simulation, it says default shape complexity, and here we have simple and complex. Okay, if we hit the down arrow and we can change this to use complex collision as simple, just like we did before, what that's going to do is that's going to change everything so that it now has a collider built using the complex collision as a simple. So now if I go back in and I hit play, what should happen is I should not be able to pass through the door anymore. Okay. And that goes for anything else that I may have been able to pass through before as well, because I know I haven't put colliders on a lot of this. Okay. Now one thing we notice is if we take a look at the medical bags when they appear now, we were using them as a project default, which wasn't basically it didn't have the colliders turned on for it, so it didn't have a collider. So in this case, what we would have to do, and you have to this is where you kind of have to weigh the decision here back and forth. What makes a little bit more sense to change everything to this default so that it all has colliders, or only change a few things based on what you have in your game to have colliders? Because the only other thing that's really going to be affected in my game are the pickup bags. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, and we're going to just go in real quick, and since it's a blueprint, and these are my pickups, I can come into my pickup, go to my viewport. Right here is where that bag is. Okay, if I select the bag, double click on it here, and then go back in, and now instead of being a project default, we're going to change this to simple and complex, and then we're going to save it. Now if I hit play, those are going to appear back on the ground like they were supposed to before, and we're good to go. Alright, so now let's go ahead and get into what this title is actually about, and that's creating triggers. Well, I wanted to make sure we did that so that for these door assets we don't have to worry about going in and adding in the colliders for the door, the doorknob, the door frame, and whatever else pieces there might be, because we are also going to take a look at the slider door here, and there's multiple pieces to that as well. Alright, so let's go ahead and go into our blueprints, into our triggers, and right here we did go over triggers before. We made the play area blueprint trigger. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and right click in here. We want to go to blueprint class, and we want to select actor, and this is going to be a BP, and this will be underscore, and I'm going to call this front door. Okay. Now with that, double click on it. Alright, and what we want to do here in our viewport is we're going to get our door set up first. And the next piece here, let's go ahead and see how this is going to work out for me. Since I already have the doors set up, go ahead and save some of this stuff. Close this. We don't need that open. Don't need that open. Don't need that open anymore. And I'll leave the game mode open to remind me to come back and fix that. Alright, so what I want to do is I want to first add a component here. Okay, and this component is going to be a static mesh, and this will be the door frame. This will be the outer piece of the door, and actually it's SM. Okay. And now what we want to do is we want to find that static mesh. Okay. So jump back in here, and if I click on it and right click, we can browse to asset. Okay. And that will help us out at being able to find this. And then I'm going to pull my front door piece out here. A little bit bigger. And right here on my static mesh, this is where I want that door frame. And probably should have browsed to that asset. There we go. Alright, so with that door frame selected, I'm going to slide in and put that here. Alright, so this is where we can see that we're going to have our first problem. Okay, and this has to do with the model and the way it was made in Maya. Okay, so these, I actually made these models in Maya, and because the root point is zeroed in the model, and when I imported it in, it put the position of the door frame at 0, 0, even though the door is not physically there. And if I try to move this around, it's going to cause some issues. Now I can attempt to adjust it here in Unreal Engine, but it doesn't always work so well. The best thing to do, because we want this door to actually be at 0, 0, is to go back into your modeling software that you have, whatever you're using, Blender, Maya, 3ds Max, whatever, and open your model up and try to fix your center point here on the model. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause real quick. I actually have these fixed. I'm going to import them from a different model. I'm not going to go through that in this because that'll make this a very long video, and all we really want to do is we want to learn triggers. But I wanted to show you this so that if you saw this, you would know what you would have to do to fix it. Because one of the things that's annoying is when you import a model and you're following along with someone's tutorial and everything works great. Well, sometimes it doesn't work great for you at home, right? So this is kind of an example of how if you imported it, this might cause you a little bit of a headache because you could put all this together, but it wouldn't be set correct. So I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, I'm going to pause our video for a second. I'm going to bring in the correct models, and we're going to move forward from there. Okay, so that took a minute, but now I'm back. So here we are, still with our house set up, with our door set up kind of the way it was right here. So what I'm going to do is I can either just get rid of it here, click that little button, get rid of it, go back to none. You can also click on this and you can hit clear to get rid of the mesh that you don't want. Now, this is my front door, the one that should be zeroed out. So now I'm going to go ahead and drag that in, and my door frame is in the right position. All right, and now the next thing I need to do is underneath my door frame, as a child of the door frame, I'm going to add another component. And this is going to be another static mesh. But see right here, it wants to go ahead and select that front door for me because I already have it selected. It's kind of nice, but it's also kind of a pain if you're not paying attention. So I'm going to select my door, and now I'm going to add components, and it's going to put my front door in for me. And then there's also a piece of glass that I have on this door. I'm going to go ahead and make that a child of the door. I'm going to add another with the glass in. And then I'm going to select the doorknob. I'm going to select the main door again. Make that a child of the door itself, not the individual pieces. And you can see that piece of glass is not transparent. I'll have to adjust some of the pieces to it. And let's see here. The door is a little bit off. Why is that? Okay, so the door is a little bit off because of the location here. So we're going to go ahead and zero it. There we go. All right, so everything should be lined up the way it's supposed to be. All right, good. Glass. And we want to fix all that in here before we turn this into a trigger. So we want to make sure we have everything set up the way we want it. Okay. And we could also add materials to this at this point in time. But I'm not going to do that. I'm assuming you understand how to do that on your already. I might at the end, but then you can just skip it if you want instead of taking your time and wasting it right now. So right now we've got pretty much everything set up here for our door the way we want it. Now what we need to do is go ahead and add a box collider in here too. So let me go ahead and put this back up. All right, so now what we want to do is back here on the main door frame, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the door frame and drag it up right here where it says default scene route. I'm going to get rid of that little circle down there. We don't need that anymore, that little sphere. And we're going to add a box. Okay, and we want box collision. Okay. And now what we want to do is we want to adjust that box collider. And actually, we're going to go ahead and adjust the box collider, and then we're going to adjust the scale of our door here inside of this as well, because the door's scale is going to be way too small for the house right now. I'm going to need to adjust the scale to 8, and I'll take care of that in a minute. So let's go ahead, but first, adjust our box, okay? And that's what this box extent is right here under the shape. We don't want to adjust the scale here for the box. We want to adjust it here, okay? And this is going to narrow it on the X. This is going to narrow it on the Y. And this is the Z, which is the up and down. At this point, we can move it around really easily still. Well, we'll be able to no matter what. But. And actually, I want the width of it. We're going to make some adjustments to this real quick, but because of the way we're going to use it as a trigger, maybe just a little bit bigger than the door and a little bit wider in that respect there. And then I am going to go ahead and bring it out in the Y so that it has some room for our character to trip it and interact with it. Alright, so now we've got the box collider set up initially. Let's go ahead and compile and save what we have. Now what we want to do is we want to go into the event graph. And in the event graph, we want to make sure we have the box selected right here because this is going to be our trigger. Okay, and this is where we're going to create an overlap. Okay, so we're going to do on component, and we don't want on component overlap actors. We want on component, add on component begin overlap. We're also going to want the end overlap as well, but we're going to select this one first, and then we're going to go back in, and we're going to do the same thing. If I can type correctly, and where'd you go? Oh, see right here, you have to have the box selected in order for that to work. It jumped off there on me because I clicked off of it by accident. Okay, so there we go, on component, end overlap. All right, so that's the first piece of this. Now, the way we're actually going to make the door move is we're going to use two things. First, we're going to do a timeline, okay? So right out here, we're going to right-click, and we're going to create a timeline. Okay, so we're going to add this timeline. This is what we're going to use to actually make this move, and I'm going to rename this front door timeline. Okay, we're going to double click on this, and notice now we have this little tab opened up here. We're going to pick a float, so we're going to add a float track right here. Okay, and what we want to do is we're going to right click here, and we're going to add a key, and this first key is going to be set at time 0, so we want it at the very beginning when we first interact with it. And then for the value, we're also going to leave that at 0. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to right-click out here again. We're going to add another key and click on the little yellow dot. Make sure it's selected. Up here, we're going to pick 3 for this, so like 3 seconds into it. And then this is going to have a value for the distance of our rotation, and this is going to be 90. Okay. So we're going to open the door up 90. You can do more or less depending on how you want that door to rotate, because this is going to be a rotating door, right? So we're going to rotate on an axis. Okay, the other thing we want to do is, now if we want to zoom out a little bit, zoom way out, we can kind of see what's happening here. There we go. Okay, we're going to right click on this. Nope. Let me see here. Okay. What we want to do is we want to make this a curve. So by selecting these, basically what I did is I framed it. It would have been a lot easier to do that than zoom out like I had just done. And what we want to do is we want to make it so that we have a curve in this line here. And give me a second here. We want us to, let's see here, what am I forgetting? There we go. Right click on one of the little diamonds, okay? What we want to do is we want to change this to auto. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and right click and we're going to select auto. We're going to get this little ease in and ease out curve so that it slowly starts to open, and then it opens a little bit faster, and then it slows down as it gets to the point where it's open. So we're going to put this little S curve into it like that. Okay. The next thing we want to do is we want to do autoplay, so that when we walk up to it for the first time, it'll actually work for us. All right. So now we're going to go back to our event graph. We're going to, on component overlap, we're going to hit play. And then we're going to, when we leave, we want it to play in reverse. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is this new track right here. My bad for not naming it. So let's go back here. Right here where it says new track. Let's rename it. Okay. And this is going to be door rotation. And we'll put it on Z. So we know that's the Z-axis that we want to rotate it on. Now we're going to go back to the event graph and we change the name. I'm just going to right click out here and say make rotator. Okay, we're going to make a rotator. Now we could have drug off of here and done that, but for some reason it seems to like attaching it automatically to the X. We want to attach it to the Z. Okay. Now the next thing we want to do is we're going to go ahead and select the front door itself, not the frame, but the front door. And we're going to set relative, so right click, set relative. Okay, and we want relative rotation. And we want to do it on the front door, okay? So this SM front door, that's the part that I want to rotate. I'm going to select that, and it automatically grabs that door for us. Down a little bit. I'm going to take this return value, I'm going to select that, put that in there, and then hit the update. We're going to compile it, and we're going to save it. Now I'm going to go back into the scene here. Oh, one thing we forgot to do. I forgot to do. I'm going to go back to my viewport, select the door, and we're going to scale it up so that it's 8. And when I do that on the main one, it's going to, all the children are going to follow along. So the box and everything is going to automatically scale up for me. We're going to save this, and we're going to go back in. So right here, the door that I have existing here, I'm going to select it. I'm going to hit delete, delete all the pieces to it. And now I'm going to go find in my content, in my blueprints, in my triggers folder, this door. I'm going to drag it into the scene. It's rotated 90 degrees on me. Shouldn't make a difference though. As long as I get the correct direction of the door opened up. And let's see here. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. I believe it went this way. Oh, don't do that. Okay. That in here. All right, I might need to do a little fine tuning, but let's go ahead and test it and see if it works. I'm going to hit play. All right, so I have the door rotated the wrong direction. 50-50 chance, and I managed to pick the wrong one. But you can see that it is working. So let's go ahead and rotate that door 180 degrees. There we go, 180. We'll clear it away. Now remember the doorknob is on that side. I'm tuning in a little bit. I'm not worried about making it perfect right now. All right, so now the door should open up, and then as I pass through it, the door should close. I come back up to it, from behind, and the door. All right, so that is a rotation door down, and I see that the door, okay, we'll worry about that some other time. One thing I noticed when I made this model is I made it so that there is a kind of a lip around the door, and I'm not sure that the door is, actually it is working right. It's a nice spot. All right, never mind. We'll worry about that later. All right, so the next thing is this door right here, the slider. So the first one was done by rotation. Now we're going to do a very similar thing, but we're going to do it as a rotation, or as a transform instead of as a rotation. I'm going to go ahead and do the whole process over again. We could just duplicate this, change out the pieces we want to change out, and then change out the blueprint pieces as well. But I'm just going to go through the step by step again, just in case you miss something or you want to practice. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, again, we're going to right click. We're going to create a blueprint class, actor, okay, BP underscore, and this will be all right, double click to open that up. Okay, and it's the same processes, except this one has a little bit more pieces to it. So what I'm going to do is, let's go ahead and let's see here. Make sure I got all my pieces involved. All right, yeah. I'm going to pull this off of here. Make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to add the component. The first component I'm going to add, and you know what? Why don't we go ahead and make our life a little bit easier? I'm going to go back into my content folder, into my mesh, and my updated mesh for my glass sliding door. And I'm going to start with the outer door frame. Okay. And that's going to give me my door frame there. And then with this selected, because that's going to be my main piece, I'm going to go ahead and put that on top of the root there, get rid of that. Now I'm going to go ahead and add each of the individual pieces that I need. So again, static mesh, and actually that's going to be a child of that as well. Static mesh. Okay. Now I want the glass to be children of the individual pieces, so hopefully this is going to be the tough part, making sure we get the right pieces of glass for the right side. So this glass, if I go to frame 2 right there, I'm going to select that, I'm going to add a component. Yes, we got lucky. All right, and then the other frame, go ahead and select that and make this child a child of that. The reason why we want to make sure we have them as children of the sliding piece that they belong to, instead of the main door frame, is because we're going to slide open the actual slider that we want to have move. Okay. Okay, so now let's go ahead and set the trigger. And let's see here. I am going to rename these so I can keep this a little bit better. So it's not so big for one thing, but also so I can kind of keep a better idea of what's piece is which. Last frame. All right. File that, save it. So now we've got the beginnings of all that. So the piece that's going to move on this is going to be this left side for me right here. And I am going to add a component underneath it, and it's going to be a box. It shouldn't really matter that it falls under there. You know what? Instead of putting it under there, I'm going to go ahead and just put it underneath the entire door itself. My bad. And this is going to be a box collision again. Okay. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to resize it. Okay. And again, remember we want to resize it using these extents right here. Get down about there. Let's see, Z, back down a little bit. Change the view here and try to get a better feel for where this is actually going, since it's kind of messing me up. Alright, we can just select these different ones here to change our view on what we're seeing, and that's the left. So let me see, this should be front. Okay, and then for the overall thickness, which is the X. Y, my bad. Okay, so make the Y, just kind of leave it about there. Let's change this back to the left since I messed it up. No, I think we're good. All right, so now we're going to go back to perspective. Got everything all kind of lined up the way we want it. So let's go ahead and jump on over to the event graph. Let's see what we got so far. And with the box selected, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to right click. We're going to put, let's see if this makes any add events. Nah, I'm just going to go ahead and go on. Oop. All right, let's try that again. On component. There we go. That's what I want. On component. That's what I want. Component. Okay, let's see here. Let me see here. I don't know what's happening, but it didn't want to work. All right, so begin overlap. We're going to go ahead and select that box again. Right click on components and overlap. And again, we're going to do a timeline. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and right click here, type in timeline. Okay. And we're going to call this slider door timeline. Okay. Play in reverse. Double click the timeline. We're going to do another float. All right. We're going to right click here. We're going to add another key. Change this to 0 and leave it at 0. Okay. And now we're going to go ahead and right click again. We're going to add a key. And this key, we're going to, again, do this at 3. Now the difference here is because we're not actually going to rotate, we are setting this up to slide open. Okay, so 90 is going to be really far on the translation. So this is something you may have to play around with a little bit to come up with the right distance. Another possibility is if we take a look here and I select this door right here, this is the equivalent door that's going to move, and we take a look at our locations here. If I hit W to rotate this one, and unfortunately that's all the way out here, and slide it over to where I want it to be, we can see that our Y is moving, okay? So what you could do is you could come up with some math here, okay? Okay, that was good. Control Z, let's do that instead. So it's about 7073. If I wanted it to open up all the way, so it's like kind of like that. So 7073. And then we have a final number, 7172. Okay. So that's about 101 in that translation. I'm going to tell you that that's going to be probably too much, since I know 90 is too much. So what we're going to do instead is just going to have to be kind of a trial and error thing. So right here we're going to right click, we're going to add key to the float. If I didn't already do that. We're going to make this one at 3, the same as the other. And I know from another, I'm testing this out. Oh, my bad. 3. I don't know what I'm keep hitting. I think I already have one on there, that's why. Alright, I did actually add one by accident. So let's go ahead and we're going to delete this key right here. Select it, hit delete. Let's go ahead and see what I got on here. I'm going to hit these little buttons, and there it is right there. That's why it wouldn't let me put another one there. I'm going to click on that, and we're going to change this to 13. Okay? And now we're going to go ahead and bring these into our time zone here. And we want that same thing to happen, so we're going to right click on one of these keys. We're going to do auto so we can get our ease in, ease out curve. Alright, we're going to compile it, we're going to save it. Now we're going to go back to our event graph, and we're going to finish this up. Once again, good job. Let's give it a name. Okay, and this is going to be, we'll call this left slider door. Okay. All right, so we got to start there. Now, since we're just going to go ahead and set relative location, this is going to be a little bit different as far as the blueprinting part for this. So if we right click and we look for set relative location, okay, this is going to be the left glass door. So let's because I went with set relative location for left glass, okay, and that should be that one right there. Okay, let's double check. Okay, we're good. Now, when we do that, we can just split the struct pins here. So what I did was I just right-clicked on the little yellow pin there, and I'll go ahead and show you. Okay, right here where it says new location, I can just right-click and I can split the struct pins. Okay, something like down there, and so this is going to translate as we saw on the Z-axis. Well, actually, this is on the Y. Go ahead and try this out. Should be on the x-axis. Oh, I know. Okay, so this is going to be on the y. So we're going to go ahead and take this and we're going to slap that into the y location. We're going to hit the update here. Compile, save. Alright, so in my demo house that I was practicing, where I created this lesson concept on, the house is actually rotated. So, with the rotation, when I put everything in there, it kind of changes up the direction that the door slides open. So when you're doing that, make sure you pay attention. Do a check real quick to see if you're going to do when you're doing a location or transform change, double check to make sure that it's going to rotate the way you think it is, and it's going to slide the way it is. So make sure you check that. Okay. So let's go ahead and put that in now. It should be ready to go. We've saved it, compiled it, saved it. Okay. So let's go ahead and go into here. We're going to go ahead and delete the existing models. Now I'm going to go back into my content, blueprints, triggers, and find that slider door. And I'm going to delete it. There's one thing I want to do before we do that is go back to my door frame, and remember I need to scale it up. Save it. Now let's try it. There we go. We may need to change the struct pin location, but we'll try that out because I'm going to have to rotate this. And let's see here. This is the door I want, I believe. There. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to try this out, and hopefully it works the first time. We may have to make some minor adjustments, but that's okay. Alright, so oh, that's what I forgot to do. I forgot to hit autoplay. This is what happens when you don't hit autoplay. Look at that. Okay, definitely rotated went the wrong way. Alright, so two things we got to fix. First up, I have the wrong slider door moving. And the other thing is I didn't do autoplay. And I also didn't, it was definitely in the X direction that we wanted it to go. Even though it looks like it's in the Y. So we can go ahead and fix that really simple here. Let's go ahead and go back in. First, our slider line. Click the little autoplay right there. And now go back into the event graph. And this should actually go into the X right here. So if I hover over it and hold down the control button, there we go, control button, there we go. Hold down the control, slide it up, or left mouse button, click and slide it up. Compile, save. Now let's go ahead and rotate the model 180 degrees. Okay. Play. All right, here we go. If you don't like how slow it goes, you can certainly set it up to go faster just by making your timeline a little bit shorter. So we go back into the door here and into the slider timeline. We did this at 3. You could change this to something like 2, and it'll go just a little bit faster. So by changing it here. Faster. Okay, so that's it for all the trigger pieces. If that's all you came to this video for, the next piece I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go a little bit over making these glass, and that kind of process is something you can use to put your own mesh on, but I'll show that real quick. So we go ahead and I have a glass material already set up that are being used for the rest of these here, but what I want to do is I am going to put it here under my materials, since I already have a materials folder. This particular glass here is already in my, it should be here inside of my mesh where my house is. There should be one in here already called M-Window. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this one, and then I'll apply it to this here. Now, one easy thing I could do is I could just select this door here, and actually I'm going to have to pull the slider door off again, because now that I've turned it into a blueprint, everything has to be done from inside here. I'm going to go to the slider there. If I just select the glass piece right there, an easy thing that could be done is I could just grab this window glass I have right here and slide that up in there. And it's going to turn those into glass. And there we go. Okay, and it'll do the same for the other one if I select the other one. This is kind of just a generic material I threw together and gave it some transparency on. It's not the window glass that I would necessarily want to use. So let's go ahead and open this material up and I'll take a look at it. Yeah. So basically what this is just a basic material that I added a parameter to, and I gave it some, made it translucent down here, and then I put this on here at 0.01, so it kind of turned opaque, or got rid of made it translucent instead of opaque. All right, so what I want to do instead though is we're going to walk through making our own material. So I'm going to go back to content, into materials, and right here I'm going to make a new folder. Yeah, and I'm going to call this glass, in case I want to put other types of glass into it. And inside here, right click, I'm going to make a material, and I'm going to just call this window glass. And it should be M at the beginning, M underscore window glass. Double click that. Now you can see this is pretty much that exact same material, except I don't have anything added to it. I'm going to go ahead and change this from opaque to translucent, and when I do that, I do lose some of my information in here, but what I want to do is give me a second, put my notes. So there in translucent, and then the other thing I want to change is down here in the material. So from translucent, I also want to go down to where it says translucency right here, and we're going to use a surface translucency volume, and then that gives me back all of the things that I need to kind of adjust in here. Now this is mostly going to be done using constants. I'm going to right click and I'm going to type in CON, and then it's going to give me this first constant right here. Okay, I actually want 5 of these, so I'm going to just kind of put my mouse down here, Control W with that selected, and this is going to keep giving me those. Control W, Control W, Control W. So now I have 5 of these. All right, so this first one right here, we're going to plug into our base color and also into our metallic. We're going to give this a value of 1. Okay, and what we're doing is using this constant to actually set up the color that we're going to use. So 0 you saw was black, 1 is white, and then if you use decimals in between, you get different shades of gray. Okay. Now the next thing we want to do is we're going to set up our specular here so that we get a little bit of a reflective surface, the way the light's going to play off of it. We're going to connect that up, and this is a number that we can always kind of change later on, 0.5. And what I want to do, I think, is actually promote this to a parameter so that we can play with this outside of the when we make this into a material instance. So we're going to name this specular so we know what it is. Okay. All right. So this next one, roughness. I'm not going to make this a parameter because it's going to be set at 0 because this is glass. We want it to be smooth. Opacity. Opacity. I'm going to put this at 0.5, and I will promote this one to a parameter as well. And I'm going to call this one opacity. Okay. And you can see already now we're beginning to get kind of a reflective surface. It's got kind of shininess from the metallic up here, and it's very smooth because of 0 roughness. And this next one we're going to, and actually I'm going to need one more of these as well. So with this one selected, I'm going to hit Control W, make myself a second one. Okay, and this top one, we're going to make this 1. And this one here, select it. We're going to make this a 1.52. And what this is going to be our IOR. And glass, if you go into the Unreal Engine's documentation, glass kind of has an IOR of 1.52. You can look up some other values for things like water and such like that, crystal, diamonds. All right, so we're going to promote this to a parameter as well because this is something that we may want to change or play with later. And we're going to go ahead and call this IOR. All right, now with these set up, I'm going to right click. I want a linear interpolation. So a lerp, type in lerp, and you get in linear interpolate right there. This is going to go into A. This is going to go into B. And we want a Fresnel, okay? So right click, FRE Fresnel. This is just going to be left the way it is with the parameters that it has. Hook that to alpha, and this is going to come down here to our refraction. And now, there we go. We're going to go ahead and save this. Go ahead and close this one. We don't need that one open. And I'm going to close that one. All right, so back to my main setup here. All right, and again, I'm going to pull my slider door back out. I'm going to apply this to the slider door. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this glass and we're going to go ahead and apply it and to both halves. Did not select it. Try that again. There we go. And you can see that now we have sort of a different behavior from the glass. Now we have to kind of build out the lighting and stuff again to see what kind of behavior we're going to get. Next thing we might want to do is, because this is going to have some, just back up here, hit save. We want some reflectiveness too, right? So let's go ahead and up here, let's see here, it should be under visual effects. There it is. We want the sphere reflective. So I'm going to pull this into the scene here. And okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of bring this down a little bit. It's really, really big. That's small. And we'll move it in a little bit. You can see now that we're starting to get some reflective surfaces in here, but up here it says my reflection light needs to be rebuilt. We can simply go up here to build, and down here, build reflection captures. We can go ahead and build that real quick. You can see we've got a little bit of a reflection happening in our glass now. And that's why, instead of just using the transparency one that we had before, where I just kind of made some material transparent, we can start using this material, and this material will give you a much better reflective surface because it's designed to do that for one. And there we go. All right, so the process of changing out the rest of your mesh, again, you're going to change it on your door. You're going to have to go back into the blueprint itself and select the individual pieces, and then just find your materials you want to do. And that reminds me, I just kind of flubbed this up a little bit. So I was supposed to turn this into a material instance. Right click, let's go ahead and do that. So if you right click on it, you go to create material instance, and I'm just going to leave it the same name with INST at the end of it. Okay, and now let's go back, fix my door real quick. Can't believe I did that, my bad. Apologize for that, all over the place today. Do that on both sides. And the reason why we want it to be a material instance is we're going to make some adjustments to this material, okay? And you may want to anyway in the future. So let's park this back up here, save it. We'll go back to the instance, okay? If we wanted to make any changes to the IOR, the opacity, or the specular, you can do that right in here. And simply by kind of changing these numbers around a little bit, we'll adjust the way your glass behaves. Okay. You see that really gets some really weird behavior when you do that. So, all right, we can adjust the opacity if you don't want it to be quite so see-through. Specular is minor adjustment. All right, so that's it for what we have here. Okay. And you can go ahead and, again, do that to all of your glass. You can start making your adjustments to your mesh if you need to. Okay, so again, if you wanted to catch up on where we are, you can go ahead and visit my YouTube channel, Putting on the Fritz 3D Visualization. I have other classes in there on 3D modeling, how to model some of these things. There will be additional stuff for Unreal Engine and some more content added for Unity, as well as some other things as we move along. So anyway, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you like this video, please like it and leave a comment if you also liked it, or if you don't like it, please let me know so I can fix something. All right, thank you so much, and I will see you next time.